Now, we're pretty cold across the east. It's hard to argue that we're not. A good 10 to 20 degrees below average. We've been that way for quite some time. A lot of you are going to be dealing with, unfortunately, a pretty high heat bill, it looks like, at this point. And I think there will be some warmer air for the east heading into next week. This pattern setting up doesn't convince me that it's going to stay warm once we get warm. In today's video, we're going to look at the cold that's still building across the Arctic and the long-term patterns that we're seeing. We've got snow that's going to be moving through the Great Lakes and the Northeast. Some of this could add up significantly, and we're also going to look at what's going on across the Arctic as our snow and ice continues to build here. Hope you're having a great Tuesday wherever you are. Thanks for watching, guys. A lot of new folks are here on the channel. We just rolled through 12,000 subscribers on this small YouTube channel, so thank you guys very much for subscribing. If you've not subscribed and you enjoyed this kind of forecasting content, I hope you'll come back. If you're brand new, I'm Travis Roberts. I used to be a television chief meteorologist, but I've been out of that business for years. So let's just get right into what's going on. I promise we'd look at the Arctic. Everything in blue is snow. The orange is sea ice. And what we're looking at right now is last year. I want to show you a back-to-back difference almost 1 year ago. Over here is Europe, and then over here is Siberia. Now you've got Alaska, and then North America clearly here. And right here is the North Pole. I want you to watch right here, just to the northwest, really, of Alaska last year and then this year. So a little more sea ice and a little more snow, too. I'm going to go back to last year. Look across North America. Last year, this year. Last year, this year. So there's quite a bit more snow here, and that just tells me that as we get these Arctic intrusions, this is why this year is a lot different than last year, because as the cold air moves south, it's not going to be moving over as much open land to be modified across the prairies of Canada. And we've also got a pretty decent snow here across parts of the upper Midwest and the Plain states. Now, arguably across Europe, I'm going to go back to last year and then this year. Not a huge change, maybe even less snow this year for also parts of Europe and Asia. And I think that's probably because a lot of that cold air has been pushed across the pole into North America, as we see that right here. Boom, there it comes down into the prairies of Canada, into the northern plains of the United States. Another shot of cold air heading into Wednesday, but I want to pay particular attention here across the North Pole, because anything really under this blue here, you can kind of see these colors here. I'm trying to just draw it out. These are temperatures below 0 Fahrenheit. And if anything, this kind of starts to expand somewhat as we get toward the end of this period. Now, do I believe this is going to happen? I don't know, but we're definitely not dealing with as much pink up here compared to this. So some colder air building. When does that break off and move south as we head into January? To be determined, but the cold's there. The elements are coming together, and I think it's going to be a much different winter this year than last year. Does that mean you see more snow in your specific city? The heck if I know, but it's definitely colder, and it doesn't mean it's going to be colder for everyone. Across the West, we're quite a bit above average right now. Temperatures heading into tonight, Tuesday night, and early Wednesday, cold, but a little bit warmer as our flow starts to turn a little more southwesterly out ahead of our next system, which is going to bring some snow into the Northeast. So enjoy the 30s and 40s and close to 50 here across Tennessee and to the Carolinas. We're not getting much warmer, though, across the Northeast. We'll probably stay in the 30s and 40s here, arguably a little warmer here along the coastal shore of New Jersey, the Jersey Shore, as they say, and then down into the Delmarva. But here comes the cold, the Arctic air driving south. It always drops just south of Lake Michigan here, and that's because the lakes here are warming up and modifying that air, and that's why it looks like this as your cold air drops into Indiana, Illinois, and Ohio, where these winters can be brutal. Another cold shot of air. Look how far it pushes south. So while we are seeing, maybe not as cold as up here in Wisconsin, which, by the way, the lakes are freezing over. Be very careful. Several of you chiming in the comments about ice fishing. I don't know anything about that, but I can tell you, sounds like it could be dangerous. So I don't know how frozen the lakes are, but you got to think that with temperatures in the single digits and teens, not getting above freezing during the day, we're starting to build those ice packs on those lakes. Cold across the south into Saturday morning, could be really cold across Florida again. And if you're wondering how cold this is compared to average, I mean, we are looking at a good 10 to 20 degrees below average. Keep in mind, it's still early December. And while across the north, this may seem very close to seasonal, and yeah, we get these ups and downs. I mean, we're talking a good 15, almost 20 degrees, arguably, here across the south with this next shot of cold air. Temperatures go way below average. Not as cold across the west. You're really Arctic and polar air east of the mountains here. Nice and toasty across the southwest, Phoenix to Tucson in the 70s. Even down into Southern California, up into the Central Valley, up into the 60s here, even up into places like Tahoe, into the mountains, above average. We had some snow to start ski season. More snow is on the way, though, I think, as our weather pattern starts to shift here as that Arctic air stays east of the mountains. Now let's look at the overall pattern change that I think is going to be happening. Your big ridge here across the western part of the North America, keeping us warm. We've got this upper low here. This has been a tricky piece of energy that looked like maybe last Friday, Saturday into Sunday that it was going to form some kind of storm on the East Coast. I told you in that video my confidence was super low. It looks like it's not going to happen, and no surprise here. Now, I think this is going to happen. We're likely going to see this trough swing off the coast. Your energy holds back here, and it waits really for this next piece of energy that drops into the Pacific Northwest. This right here is probably going to cause our headache next week. Where does this snowstorm form? Do we get big snows back in here? This is a warm pattern for the east, right? So we do warm up. There is some relief, but not a lot of warm air here into the central United States. If anything, this looks like this cold is getting reinforced heading into next weekend, and your ridge starting to build back across the west. And look, a weird pesky upper low again. That's a really weird pattern setting up, and it looks very stagnant to me. And that could mean more cold. Let's look at the snow, though, in the short term. As we head through the day into tonight, snow continuing to break out across northern parts of Wisconsin into Michigan, also here into southern Ontario. This is not lake effect. This is synoptic snow being caused by large-scale forcing. We've got an area of low pressure moving through, causing the air to rise. Out ahead of this, some decent snow here, a couple of inches across southern Ontario. A lot of the bulk of snow, as you can see, is north of the Great Lakes, but we will get some snow, I think, out on the front side of this into parts of Pennsylvania, New York, and then eventually into the parts of the Northeast. The lake effect snow machine now turning on behind this as we get our winds coming off of the lakes. More lake effect snow that could last into the weekend. A closer look at the Northeast here. We've got some lake effect still going, believe it or not, today. Not as heavy as we've seen. And some of it could actually pick up ahead of our system heading into Wednesday as southwest flow kicks in across parts of western New York. So Buffalo, watch out for this. The snow band may move back north of Watertown, but now we're looking at that synoptic snow, that large-scale feature snow moving into western New York, western Pennsylvania. And let's watch the coastal cities, because I think we could start as a little bit of a rain-snow mix for places like New York City, southern Connecticut, but eventually we go back over to rain, especially into Long Island. I don't even know that we even see any snow here down into the Jersey Shore. And then across western Connecticut, western Massachusetts, it's all snow here. But as the cold air tries to rush in and meet the warm air, we start to see rain change over to some snow. And eventually it will flip back over and just a few snow showers. And we may see a few flakes here into New York City and into parts of New Jersey as the precipitation ends. But this certainly isn't a big snow for you. And now the lake effect kicks back in behind this, as you can see, off of Lake Ontario and Lake Erie, downwind of both of these lakes. Most of the snow, again, well north of the coast here. We're talking about the western higher elevations of Connecticut, northwest really, and then up into Massachusetts. So the highest snowfall and also the lake effect snow are really going to be expected downwind of the lakes, up into the Adirondacks, western Mohawk Valley, up into parts of Vermont, especially into the Green and White Mountains. Get up into some elevations. And as you get into Vermont, some of those higher elevations could see 6 to 12 inches over into the Adirondacks. There's going to be some downsloping flow. Also into the Catskills, we're going to see some snow, but some of the downsloping flow may limit that snow here into the parts of the Hudson Valley heading north. But there's your snow off of the Great Lakes, really piling up again. And there's going to be snow too down into the mountains of Pennsylvania and West Virginia. Not a big snow event here, but nonetheless some decent amounts into parts of Pocahontas County, northern parts of West Virginia up towards Elkins. Snowshoe, probably going to see some decent snow out of this. And then down into the southern Appalachians of western North Carolina, Virginia, Kentucky, southern West Virginia, maybe a coating of snow at best, not a huge deal. And then across southern parts of Canada, I still think we're going to see a solid 3 to 6 here. Some areas may see a couple of inches, a few places more, even into Toronto, a couple of inches here into southern Ontario as this moves off to the east. This isn't the only weather going on. That's the snow. We've got rain across the south. Some of this could be heavy along the Gulf Coast. That starts to get squelched into Florida off the coast as we move into Friday as high pressure builds in. And we are quiet across the west as this high pressure just sits here and just keeps us dry and relatively warm for this time of year. Onshore flow starts to develop, though, into British Columbia and parts of Washington State as moisture moves in. Rain and snow will pick up here. And another Clipper system diving in from the northwest will bring some snow into parts of the northern Great Lakes, and then I say northern really into parts of Canada mostly, and then into the northern parts of New England. And now our system heading into Sunday and Monday starts to take shape across the west. It's going to bring some snow here, colder temperatures, warmer in the east. Now we're bringing rain north all the way to the Canadian border as our high is anchored off the coast. Your flow coming in like this, low pressure developing here across Texas. Where does it go? It's probably going to go this way if I had to guess at this point, and that would put snow back here. I don't know if it puts snow into Oklahoma. I think there's a lot of question about the track of this, something that is still way out to sea and 1 week away. No way am I going to bet the farm on this, but this will move north if you're to believe the latest GFS, which has a tendency to overdo things, putting a strong low into the Great Lakes. That could bring you a snowstorm into parts of Missouri, Iowa, Wisconsin, up into Michigan. The European is much more progressive with this energy, taking it offshore and not even really giving you much of a snow at all, if any. And then it moves offshore pretty quickly, and then we turn just seasonably cold. And in fact, this would be probably closer to normal. I think we start to set some storms up here in the central part of the country heading into mid to late December. The cold, this is one of the reasons I don't think it's going to relax. These are the long-term weeklies looking out 7 days. Your ridge across the west, and boom, there comes your trough sort of shifting back to the west a little bit. That would warm your temperatures up in the east. This would be the 7 days before December 16th. So the date on the timestamp would be the last date of this model run. These are the long-term European weeklies. I'm going to take you all the way to Christmas. Okay, so this would be the week before Christmas. I'm probably going to get some craziness in the comments, but I get it. These are long-term models, and how much faith can you put in them? Not much. But I use them to look at patterns, and what am I seeing? Well, what I don't see is this ridge that's here. I don't see it in the east. Can this be wrong? Absolutely. Have these long-term models been wrong? A lot. But if you're looking for cold and you're looking for hope, there's you a little bit of hopium for your Tuesday. See you next time.